Welcome to Let's Make a Game Platformer, episode 35. In last episode, I've added a way of loading 3D models and applying animations to them whenever we wish. And in this episode, between the episodes, I've created actually this level. We have two pressure plates. This pressure plate up here is defined to open these doors. This pressure plate at the moment has no function. The idea is in here, as you can see, exit is here, so I need to open this door, and there's no way of getting up here. The idea is to, when I step on this pressure plate, to spawn a ghost of me that will move at the same time whenever I move with the arrow keys or the WASD keys. And when the ghost steps over this plate, this door will open and I'll be moving here. So first of all, let me show you the tombstone. At the moment, it's just model render, so we're saying something has to be, this entity has to be rendered, and second of all, it's rendered using the model tombstone here, the shape component, which is just using the tombstone image here. Okay, so first things first, I want to be able to first of all define that something is being spawned on receiving a signal. So in here we have a consumer that translates something. So let's maybe move it into a translate package inside of a consumer here. And create a new package here for consumer, and it's going to be called spawn. Okay, so I'll have here a component which is similar to the one spawned on overlap, which will say spawn entity on signal component. It will of course extend component. Has to be an interface. Interface. And we need these things here. Okay, so we have prefab name and the distance relative to whatever has this entity that is receiving the signal, where the entity has to be spawned. Okay, so this is all simple. So let's now create a class system for it. So spawn entity on signal system and register the system in profiles gameplay. So what we want to do is when we receive an event that signal received, so signal activated on an entity that has the spawn entity on signal component, and also a location component. What we want to do is spawn entity at the given location. So first of all, I'll inject the, it was platformer entity spawner, which is the system that we wrote a couple of episodes before that allows us to spawn entity very easily. And in here we will do the platformer entity spawner, create entity from recipe at, and we want to have location get x plus spawn entity on signal get distance x. The same for y and z. And the recipe is going to be spawn entity on signal get prefab name. And after I do this, I want to destroy this entity that has spawned. So it's going to be some sort of a one-time spawn thing. Entity manager You can have it configurable. So for example, this component might have a method field saying, should I destroy the entity or should I just remove this component? But I'll just, for now, always destroy the component. So destroy entity. So let's test this. And to test this, I will modify the tombstone here, the prefab for the tombstone. And for now, we'll just so I want to have this component here and prefab name. I'll spawn the star. It is called star. And I will spawn it at the same location as the tombstone is. Okay, so this, and I have to also specify that this is receiving the signal. So signal consumer component. So we are saying that this entity will be receiving signals. And this component, the fields we have to specify is channel. However, the channel we want to specify whenever we actually create this. So in the level, for example, here. Level here is the level. So I have the tombstones, and in here I want to specify that the signal consumer component has a channel spawn ghost. Okay, so we have the level once again. You can see here we have pressure plates that spawns, produces a signal at spawn ghost channel. We have tombstone that receives this, consumes the signal at spawn ghost. Pressure plate that opens the door, and the door that receives on the same channel as the door here. Okay, so let me run it and see if that worked. So when I step over the pressure plate, it should spawn a star, and the tombstone itself should disappear. Okay, that works. Okay, now I have to, instead of spawning a star, I have to define the ghost for the player. So let me modify first the tombstone here. Instead of prefab name, I'll just create a ghost prefab. And to do that, I'll copy the player prefab into ghost here. Okay, so now we have to remove all the stuff that is not needed. So we don't need the player component. We don't want it to be kept between levels. It doesn't have to have lives, doesn't have to have score. It has to have location. It has to be rendered using the Duke object. It has to have animations. It has to be following physics. It is controlled by player. It's affected by gravity. It's colliding with the geometry in the whole geometry in the scene. It has to have a hitbox because otherwise it wouldn't be able to step on the pressure plate. This is the important thing. So at the moment I set it to 0, so basically the camera will not focus on it at all. However, I wanted the camera to actually split the focus over this entity and the player. Maybe, yeah, okay, I'll set it to 1 for the beginning, so it's when it's gonna be spawned, the camera will instantly jump, and later on we'll make it more smoother. It should not collect any stuff. We want it to rotate based on which direction it's moving. It should belong to the player faction. It should be moved by platform and should be activating pressure plates, basically. So anything that sends a signal when you overlap. Okay, so we have this stuff. So this should basically work now. So let's take a look at it. Okay, something did not work. That's because it has location. Yeah, when we spawn entity, we add the location component to it, so it should not have it from the start. Okay. Okay, as you have seen, the camera jumped, and now I have two characters which are controlled by me, and the character stepped on it and allowed me to open the correctly the I'm not sure what is happening here. When am I dying? Well, we'll see in a second. Okay, so we have it this already. Now, at the moment, so let me change the focus camera to be 0 to not have this jump. And I want to, because it's a ghost, I want to have it like translucent. So to do that, I can modify, for example, the G3D model component to specify transparency. And I'll set the default is 1. So one, which means completely opaque. Maybe I should use a different name then for it. Maybe I'll call it opacity. That's a better name, opacity. So by default, it's going to be 1. And if we want something more translucent or transparent, we'll just modify it. Okay. So now I have to modify the class that creates this, that uses this component, which is the rendering model G3D. In here, I'll do if, okay, I'll do result. I think there is a way of getting all the materials here. So information about how something is rendered is in the material in the instance, and so I can iterate through all the materials. And based on the setting of G3D model opacity, if opacity is equal to 1, I will do material remove. It's called blending attribute. Otherwise, I'll make sure to set blending attribute, specifying that it is blended, so it has transparency, and the opacity here as a value. Okay, now if I modify the ghost prefab to have this contain opacity 0.3. So if you take a look now, so both player prefab and ghost prefab use the same Duke object. However, one of them is going to be at opacity 0.3. So let me test it quickly. Okay, as you can see, the ghost is semi-transparent. Okay, so this got fixed. Now I have to figure out, first of all, the ghost is at the moment spawned a bit further back. If you take a look at here, the player, the Z component of the player is actually half of the block because that's where the center of the player is. However, the ghost at the moment is being spawned at the location of the tombstone, which in this case is Z value of 0. So we have to modify the Z value here for the tombstone spawning to be, what's the name? Distance. Okay, so distance z is going to be 0.5. Okay, now I need to figure out why it's killing me, why when my character is dying before I get to the portal. So I'll debug it now. Okay, it's actually pretty simple. The level here had the bounds for death defined incorrectly. So let's make it 14 max X. It was only 6, so once I moved beyond 6th block, it was killing me. Okay, so that should work now fine. Okay, this pretty much shows the power of the prefabs and the component system interactions, where I was able to quickly create a new prefab for a ghost, and without changing like almost nothing here, I was able to create a ghost of the player. The only thing I had to do is something that didn't have much to do with the actual functionality of the ghost, just that something that allows me to spawn something. Now I can use the same system and the same component to spawn anything else, like stars, or even exit portal can be created, or door, or anything I want. Okay, that's gonna be it for this episode. Make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye.